Okay, it looks like our attendees have joined. Good morning, everybody. This is Noah. I'm one of the educators with Shortcut Software, and every Monday morning we have a classroom session. Today's classroom session is working with attendance, schedules, and commissions in the Shortcuts Fusion, the point of sale program. So if you're new to these presentations, just know that every Monday we run a classroom session to focus on a particular portion of Shortcuts. So if you're a manager or a new employee or an owner that's been a while since your last training, this is a great way to get caught up. So as with our other presentations, let's take care of some housekeepings. So this presentation's about 30 minutes. We're going to allow some time for questions at the end. My microphone is on. We are recording. At the end of the presentation, we're going to save it and send everybody a link so they can review this recording. So if you have to drop out early, don't worry, we're going to send you a recording. Of course, hopefully you can hear me going on, so your speaker should be on. And if you have any other questions, if you think of anything after we do our question and answer session, you can always reach us. I'll put up our contact information, but you can always reach us on our social media. So on our Instagram, on our Facebook page, go ahead and post a question and we will get back to you. So today's classroom session. So we're going to look at a very important feature in Shortcuts, tracking attendance, setting schedules, and working with commissions. So it's very important that you know how the staff clocks in and out if you're tracking their hours, if they're paid hourly. If a staff member accidentally forgets to clock in or clock out because they were just having a very busy day, how do you fix their attendance? If you have employees and you have online booking or you're using the app and you want to make sure that when customers make appointments, they're for actual days and times that your staff is available. So how do you enter a schedule in Shortcuts? And of course, if you're paying your staff commissions, whether it's service-based commissions or retail commission or both, how do you set that up in the system? So let's go down the list. So the first one, how do you clock in and out of Shortcuts? There's actually multiple ways to do this, and it's very easy. If you go to the performance button, there is a clock on button. Also, if you are using the walk-in manager, you can select the employee's name at the bottom of the screen and clock on. And of course, at the end of the day, all the employee or the staff member has to do is return to the performance button, choose their name and clock off, or go to the walk-in manager, choose their name and clock off. So in either scenario, whether you're using the traditional appointment book or the walk-in manager, you're able to get your staff to clock in and clock out on their correct schedules or their correct times. So how do you find the employee hours? How do you know, are they clocking in and clocking out when they're supposed to? So this is where you could go to reports. The particular category you're going to use is employees and specifically the employee hours report. So you're going to set a date range, whether it's a week or every 2 weeks, and then press view. And Shortcuts will actually show you what were the total hours for a particular day. When did they clock in? When did they clock out? So right away, if you're doing some sort of payroll and you want to make sure that your employee hours are correct, run this report, employee hours. And if you see somebody made a mistake and they accidentally clocked themselves overnight, so that Shortcut says, oh, this employee has been clocked on for 22 hours consecutively, then you know, oh, I need to fix their hours before we calculate what they should be paid. So always run this report. So fixing employee attendance. Now, everything that I'm previewing here on the slideshow, I'm actually going to show you in a live demonstration, how does it work? So if an employee forgot to clock in or forgot to clock out, there is a tool. It's under the tools button on the right side. You're going to go to the attendance. You can set what range you want to look at. Are you looking at last week? Are you looking at the week before? And then you can look at individual days and adjust the clock in time, clock out time, or just manually type in the total number of hours. So let's actually exit out of this slideshow for a moment and review this in an actual Shortcuts database. So If you're using the appointment book, on the right side, there's a button that says Main. This is the one that most of you are used to. And there's a button that says Performance. So normally this has the names of all of your staff members, but depending on the level of security that you gave them, they may only potentially see themselves. So perhaps managers, owners, you can see everybody. And in some salons, they give receptionists permission to see every staff member, choose their name, and then clock them on or clock them off. And you'll notice I'm choosing the Shortcuts employee, and on the top right, I clock on. So Shortcuts will ask, am I really clocking on at 9 today? Yes, I am. And now the button switches to clock off. So later today, or if I'm going to lunch and I want to make sure that I'm clocking off because you're not paying me through lunch, I would just return to the performance button and clock off. Or I would just do this at the end of the day. So that's under the performance button under main. Now, if you're the manager, if you're the salon owner, and you want to review what were the actual clock on times, remember you want to run this report before you make adjustments. So on the right side, we're going down to the Tools button. And specifically under Tools, we're going to the Reports button. And on the left side, so we've got a number of categories here. So we're going to go down to the Employees category. And the specific one is Employee Hours. Whenever you go to search for a Shortcuts report, just remember, as soon as you select any report name, Shortcuts will give you a description of what's in that report. So since we have over 120 different types of reports, it sometimes helps to get a reminder what's in this particular report. So we're going to view the Employee Hours report. Now, by default, any report that you run in Shortcuts, it wants to run for this particular day. So in this case, it wants to run the 9th of September report. But on the right side, I can set a range. So perhaps I want to look at last week from the 2nd through the 8th. But I don't have any clock in, so I'm just going to look at today. And I'll view it. So it shows my Shortcuts employee has been clocked on for 0 hours, 0 minutes. So that is my actual time. I only clocked in once today and that's it. So if you have somebody that's been clocked in for longer than that, longer than they were supposed to, you'll know right away. So this is where attendance comes into play. Now, every button that we're looking at, these are actually all protected by security. So some of the people that are listening into this presentation, you may not necessarily have the ability to look at any reports or perhaps just a handful of reports. But if it's critical that you should be able to see and adjust employee hours, make sure you have the ability to look at the employee hours report. Also, if you're responsible and should be able to adjust employee hours, that's when you should have access to visit the attendance button. So these are all controlled by security. And if you're a new manager and you do not see the attendance button, then you might want to talk to the owner to give you permission. So under attendance, I have one employee that clocked in, and that's my Shortcuts employee. And it says, oh, well, this employee just clocked in for less than a minute, so they don't have any time today. So there's a few ways I can fix this. If I know my Shortcuts employee actually clocked in early this morning because they were doing inventory, then I can choose the column that says clock on, and I can manually type in, well, actually this employee came in at 7 this morning. And once I press done, now Shortcut says, oh, okay, this employee has been in for 2 hours so far. Now, if this particular employee forgot to clock in yesterday, this is how you would fix it. So I would start by choosing the employee's name on the top left corner. And then on the bottom of the screen, I would press the new button. So we're going to add a shift for this employee. Yes, I want to add the shift and for which day. So now I can choose yesterday, the 8th. And from what time to what time did the employee work? The employee was in from 9 to 3 yesterday. So now when the screen revises, I see, okay, the employee had worked yesterday, they just forgot to clock in, and they worked for 6 hours. And the employee clocked in this morning, I fixed the time, and they've been here for 2 hours. So now, if I were to run that report, that same report, employee hours, and I were to set the date range from yesterday through today, now I'm going to have a more accurate count of when the employee was in and out. So this is how you fix that attendance. So let's go back and back to our PowerPoint. So it's critical, especially with security involved, that if you're tracking employee hours, make sure you know how to access the attendance and where the staff goes in to clock in and out. So we talked about if an employee forgot to clock in or clock out, you can search that employee's name, press new, and put in a new shift for them and tell shortcuts what day and what time. Now, if a staff member completely forgot to put in any shift for the pay period, then at the very least, you have to manually put in one entry for them, even if it's just for the same day. So for example, today, the shortcut staff member forgot to clock in and out. So you noticed I clocked in and clocked out just a few seconds apart. As soon as I created an entry during my pay period, now shortcuts will allow me to go backwards to yesterday or the day before and enter all of my missing shifts. So if you look at the attendance screen and you don't see a certain staff member, then make sure you clock them in and clock them out, even if it's just for a second. As soon as you do that, you'll then be able to access the attendance screen and add additional missing days. Right? I hope that makes sense for everybody. So let's talk about how staff schedules. Well, we already did our live demo. So when you're dealing with staff schedules, it's not enough to clock in and clock out. If you're using online services, whether it's online booking or self check-in, Shortcuts really needs to know when is a staff member working. Not just that, but you also want to tell Shortcuts when is the staff member off, whether they have a scheduled day off or they have a vacation day. You want to make sure that that is all entered. Now, this is something that sometimes people or receptionists forget to do, is how to copy schedules in Shortcuts. So the help desk actually gets this question a lot. The receptionist forgets that they can actually copy a 2-week schedule if employees are alternating Saturdays, for example. How to do that going forwards. So they manually, every day of the week, go in and enter everybody's schedule. That's just wasting hours. So we're going to look at how to enter a schedule and then how to copy a schedule. Now, if you already know how to enter a schedule, then you should know about the buttons in your schedule: mark cells, first cell, second cell, how to highlight a date range, how to set your schedule. So we're going to actually do that again in Shortcuts. So we'll exit out of our presentation, go back to Shortcuts. So there's a couple of places you can set your schedules. One is under Tools. You have a Schedule button. Again, if you have security permission, you can see the Schedule button here. The other place is under Setup, Employees, there we go, and Schedule. Both take you to the same window. So on your Schedule window, for my Shortcuts employee, if I want to enter their shift, I want to make sure I enter an entire 7-day schedule. So I'll start for today, Monday, and I'll say the employee is supposed to work from 9 to 6 today. And then I'll fill in the rest of the week. Tuesday, 9 to 6. Wednesday, 9 to 6. Thursday, however, is their day off. So for the employee, I can set this as day off. So this is critical for online booking. If somebody tries to book my Shortcuts employee on Thursday, they will say, sorry, but that day is not available. Please choose an earlier day or a later day. Friday, the employee is back, normal shift. And Saturday, my employee only works until 12 in the afternoon. So the business is normally closed on Sundays, but I had a staff member come in and do some inventory. So once I have an entire 7-day schedule, whether your week starts on a Sunday, a Monday, whatever it is, now I can tell Shortcuts to copy this schedule down. So to do that, on the top left corner, next to where it says Search Employee, there's a button that says Mark Cells. So when I choose Mark Cells, Shortcut says, oh, you're going to highlight a date range. What is the first cell of your date range? Well, even though Monday is my first day, I could start there or I could start the day before. I'll choose Monday, 9 to 6. And then Shortcut says, what is the second cell? The second cell is actually the last day of your work week. So that would be Sunday. And in this case, it lines up with Sunday the 15th. So if you noticed, in the middle of the screen, it actually highlighted from Monday to Sunday and every day in between. It actually made it a little darker to let you know I highlighted this range. Now, if I right-click on this date range, I can tell Shortcuts, okay, I want to copy this schedule, this Monday through Sunday schedule until, and then I can choose whether I'm using my pull down. Maybe this is the schedule I'm going to use for the next 2 months. And then I can choose the last Sunday that this repeats. And just like that, from now for the next 2 months, I have my same schedule entered. Now, on the top left corner, if you want to set somebody else's schedule, don't forget to press Unmark Cells. Otherwise, Shortcuts thinks that you're still trying to highlight additional days. So I'll press Unmark Cells. Now, for my Shortcuts employee, normally they're off on Thursdays. I already set that for the next 2 months. But my Shortcuts employee asked me, well, can I have a 2-week schedule? On one Thursday, off one Wednesday, and just alternate. So I can say, absolutely. I'm going to go to next Thursday, and I'm going to say, this is a normal shift for you, so you're working this day. And the employee says, absolutely. However, the following Wednesday, Wednesday the 18th, that will be my new day off. So this week, they're off Thursday, and next week, they're off Wednesday. I can still press Mark Cells, but this time, I can start with today, Monday, and go down to not this Sunday, this upcoming Sunday, but the following Sunday, Sunday the 22nd. So now I highlighted a 2-week range. So now if I were to repeat that, schedule until the end of October, last Sunday in October, Shortcuts will ask me 2 things. First, it'll say, you already had a schedule at this time. Are you sure you want to replace your current schedule? Yes, I do. They say, are you sure about that? And I'll say, yes, I'm sure. And just like that, Shortcuts now has given me a 2-week alternating schedule, off on Wednesday and then off on Thursday the following week. So you can do the exact same thing for any of your team members that should have alternating schedules. So don't forget to press Unmark Cells. Now, this is a trick that a lot of the people that we teach how to set schedules forget. So if you had another employee and more or less their schedule was exactly the same as the previous employee that you set the schedule for, there is a way to copy a schedule from one person to another. If I press Mark Cells, and I choose a particular employee schedule, Monday through Sunday, on your keyboard, if you hold down the Alt key on your keyboard, that's the one next to the space bar, you can click and drag. So in this case, I'm copying my shortcut schedule over to my business or my pretend employee name business. And just like that, I've copied down the hours. So don't forget to press unmarked cells. And maybe I just need to change which day off this employee has. So this saves me a lot of steps. I'm switching the day off to be from Wednesday to Saturday. And I did not have to enter any other day of that week. That's just by using Alt to copy that schedule over. And once the schedule is entered, I can now highlight that range and set it again for whenever I decide to end it. Now, for most businesses, especially the spas, the salons that allow online bookings, the further in advance your staff schedules are in, the easier it is for customers to make accurate appointments. So you might want to discuss with your team. Is it okay if I set your schedule for the quarter? Even better, is it okay if I set your schedule for half a year? And for some salons, they actually set their schedules for almost up to a year. And at any point during their normal schedule, the manager or the owner can go to certain days and just mark those individually out for vacation days. So the further in advance you and your staff can agree for a schedule, the better it's going to be for online booking. Okay, I hope that all makes sense to you. And we're back to our presentation. So we now know if you have staff, front desk, or employees that are hourly, that they clock in and clock out using performance. And if you have to adjust their entries, their time entries, you can adjust that in attendance. If you have staff members and they're supposed to be scheduled for online booking or scheduled for your receptionist, make sure you enter their schedules. Now, whether you're hourly, whether you're an employee that has a schedule entered, if you're going to give your staff a commission, you want to know how to create a commission. So you can create multiple commissions for multiple employees. You don't have to just have one for everybody. So where do you go for this? You go to schedule, and then there's a commission button. And on that screen, you can press new, give your commission a name. Maybe you have a commission called Commission 1, Commission 2, Commission 3, and each one has slightly different rules. And then under pay details, you can choose which employee is going to have a certain commission. So again, it's not enough to just talk about it and see a picture. Let's actually see how this works in shortcuts. So again, we're under Setup, Employees, and we're going to Schedule, just as if we're putting in an employee schedule. At the bottom of the screen, this is where you see the Commission button. Now, by default, there are no commissions in shortcuts. So it's not like we have a placeholder list that you can use. You have to create your own commissions. So I'm going to create two different commission schedules. The first one, I will press new on, and I will call this perhaps my default commission, or not my default. This will be my stylist commission. So for my stylist, there's multiple ways I can do this. If my salon does a tier system where I give them increasing amounts of the difference for their service, this is where I would set it. So let's say from $0 to $200, my commission for service is 40%. My commission for retail is only 5%. And that's going to be 5% across the board. So then I tell Shortcuts, if an employee sells more than 200, then the portion between 200 and 500 is actually 45%. And then from 501 cent above to 1,000, then they're going to get 48%. And if they do more than $1,000, then the portion from $1,000 to infinity, as denoted by a bunch of nines, is going to be 50%. So the way Shortcuts is going to give them their commission, I don't forget to put in their retail. Retail is just going to stay at 5%, regardless of what their ticket is. So what Shortcuts is going to do, it's going to give them 40% of the amount that they make up to 200, and then it's going to add the 45% that they make from 200 to 500, and then it's going to add the 48% that they make from 500 to 1,000, and if they make more than $1,000 worth of services during a pay period, then it's going to add the 50% of the portion between $1,000 and above. So it's not giving the employee 50% across the board for everything they did in that pay period. It's just giving them 50% for the portion above $1,000. So keep this in mind. If you have staff members and you feel that I just want to have a flat commission, if an employee does from $0 to infinite dollars, I'm going to give them a certain percentage on service and a certain percentage on retail, then you can do that all in the very first line. You can say from 0 to infinite dollars, my staff gets 48% or 50%. And retail is a flat 5%. So that's my stylist commission. If I press done, I can say yes, save this commission. Or I can add a second commission. So if I press new, my second commission is actually my receptionist commission. So for receptionist, you want to make sure that they're incentivized to do upsells for products. So I can, again, say from $0 to infinite dollars. Well, my receptionists are clearly not performing any services. Instead, they're going to get a 15% commission on retail. So the staff gets a commission on services and retail. It's a little bit smaller for my stylist, but my receptionist, if they're really good at upsells, they're going to do pretty well on their retail commission. So I'm going to save that and press done. So when it's time to give a staff member a commission or choose what commission schedule they should have, when you're on the employee window, you're going to choose your employee, and on the left side, under pay details, you're going to say, should this employee get the stylist commission or the receptionist commission? If this employee should also have an hourly rate because they're clocking in and clocking out, that's where I would enter their hourly. So now Shortcuts knows, okay, any service they do, they get a commission. Any retail they do, they get a commission, plus they get their hourly. All right, let's go back to our presentation. And believe it or not, you've just gotten the A to Z on attendance, commissions, and making sure everybody clocks in. So attendance, schedules, commissions. We now know how to clock in and clock out. We now know how to fix the schedules in case they forgot to clock in or clock out, how to enter a schedule for your staff members, and how to set up commissions. So with all that covered, remember you can always sign up for more webinars with us. You can also, of course, if you're watching us on YouTube, you can just surf through the various presentations we have. So now we're going to open up the floor for questions. So on the right side of the screen, you should have a button for questions or the chat button. I'm going to check both of those. And if somebody has a question, go ahead and type it in. And I'm going to bring up the window on my side, and I'll give you a few moments. So you might be writing notes right now, or you might be refilling your cup of coffee. So let's see. Nothing so far. Oh, Victoria has a good question. Can you show us a payroll/commission report? So yeah, absolutely I can do that. So remember, I have one employee, my shortcuts employee. I want to make sure that I put in at least some more days that they were supposed to be working. So hold on just a second while I give my shortcuts employee additional hours. Okay, so for this employee, my shortcuts employee, I just added a bunch of days for the previous week. And I gave him a standard 8-hour shift for the previous week. So when it comes time to actually calculate what they should be getting paid, I'm going to go to Tools, Reports, and on the left side, again, it's under the Employee category. So both the employee hours and the commission/wages report are under the employee category. So this report, commission/wages report, this is the one that shows you what your payroll should be if you're doing hourly or commission or both. So I'm going to view it and I'm going to set my date range. So I will choose last week from the 2nd through the 8th. And I will view it, and shortcuts will give me, or in this case, give every staff member their own separate page. So I have a business page. Nobody checked out under business. Instead, I'm going to the next one. So for my test one, I have an employee that worked 46 hours this week. They get 11 an hour. So their total wages is 506. Now, at no point did I do any services or sell any products. That is calculated in the second column under commissions. And what shortcuts would do is actually show me what was their total service dollars and what is their commission for that. And then at the very, very right, it's going to add their hourly plus their commission, whether it's service, retail, or both. And then it'll say total owing. This is what the business owes the staff member. So that is how you calculate and how you see that particular report. Okay. Are there any other questions? Anything from Tina or John? And of course, if anybody had to drop out, they can, of course, ask us the question on social media. I'm going to go back to the presentation. So our contact information. If you think of a question after the fact, something to do with attendance or scheduling hours or setting up your commission, if you didn't quite follow that, you can always reach us on our social media, or you can send us an email, education@shortcuts.net. Give us a call, send us an email, ask us a question on social media. We're always checking. So don't forget to do that. And of course, every Monday, we have a classroom session that gets you caught up with shortcuts. So if you have a new hire, a new manager, and you want to make sure that they know how to use the system, then be sure to share the link with them, share the videos with them, and have them sign up for the next Monday classroom session. So if there are no other questions, and I don't think we have any other questions, then we're going to wrap up this Monday session. Thank you all for attending. Have a great day.